Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to work on the dragon we started about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this session we're actually going to add in all the rest of the details and actually finishing off the rest of the model as far as modeling goes. And after that we're going to go to texturing, but that's all for an next episode. First off, we're going to work on the claws here. And you can see me, first of all I removed a bit of the detail that we did last time. And I'm actually testing out several alphas, actually looking for what would work the best in this model. And in this case it would be like a rock texture, and I'm actually using that to push in the details and the crevices for those nails. And you can see me actually moving around the model. I'm also using the transparent mode, and that's just so I can see the back side of those nails and actually add a little bit of texture there. Of course those won't actually be visible, but if there is like a gap or an overlap that I might change later on, there will be some detail there, so I don't have to redo the entire nail. It's already one set asset. First off, of course, after the details, is the thing to know here is that I'm using symmetry for some parts, and that doesn't go for the sphere and the spikes here because they're not symmetrical. One thing to note here is that the texture we did the last sculpting session was really distorted, and that's something that we're fixing right now. I'm actually adding new layer details, and instead of layering everything on top, I'm actually doing one single layer without or with backface masking, so it won't poke through. It will only be visible at one side, and I'm just working my way around every spike. That'll make sure that they look more unique, or each one is the difference, has a different look to it, a different look and feel. Switching around with textures just to add a little bit more variation, because for myself I saw that it was a little bit too repetitive, and that's why I changed it up just a little bit. Same thing here with the tongue itself. We're doing it in separate layers. First off is a little bit of a base coat, all the sides actually, and after that just adding some smaller details. Always thinking about the fact that this object will be hidden inside of the mouth, and not only will it be less visible in that way, but it's also be more in the shade, so it's also a little bit darker. I added some veins, and after that I went to the distortion map actually and just added in the skin texture, so the pores and stuff, and that's just not more than a little bit of distortion that goes over top of the entire model, and that actually blends everything together. And now I'm just using the clay brush to actually emphasize the crevices and the peaks actually, to make sure that it all fits. After that we're going to work on the teeth, if I'm not mistaken. Bear with me, I went on vacation for like a week, so I'm now trying to catch up in some work, and this is one of the jobs I still had lying around and it needed to be finished. So that's what we're doing today. And like I see, it's actually adding in a texture. The texture that I'm using is actually a skin fold texture, so it has nothing to do with the teeth. But I like the distortion that it gave me, combined with the rock texture that I'm using. After that it's time for the wings, and I'm going to do that in several passes. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is actually carve in the places where the wings are actually underneath the skin, so underneath this bone structure and skin that's already on the model. And after that we're actually ready to add in more detail. And the reason I carved this in is because I'm eventually going to hide the rest of the model, and then I still have the reference points of where those bones and claws or attachments run, so I know where it is and where I don't have to put detail, because of course that's a hidden part. And now I'm just adding in veins and actually tendencies and structural connections. And that is just to give them more realistic feel, so you can really see the movement, see like how the skin is torn and how it is connected with those bone structures underneath. And I'm thickening them up just with a regular clay brush, and I'm pushing in the sides, like the front side will be higher and the back side will be lower, and that actually creates some kind of a wave, and that's what you see here. So it's all separate smaller waves, actually making sure that the skin looks, well, more more moved, more as if there's like air or something trapped underneath. And the next part is, of course, like you see here, flattening out the sides, because it's all one piece, but it's a pretty thick piece because you use Dynamesh first of all to create it, and Dynamesh doesn't like very thin objects. But in the final model, like in the render, we'll probably add some kind of a skin shader on there with a transparency or anything that just pushes through. Therefore, it isn't really a problem that it's that thick. And at last, we did the skin pores with the same way we did it on the rest of the model. And also the backside here, you can really see me pushing in those details. And that's just to make sure that the top side is pushed up and the back side is pushed down. And next part is creating the eyes. What I actually did was remeshing them, making sure that they're all even, and distribution of polygons. And after that, we're going to use a round mask, and by going to the mask menu, you can actually make sure that your the mask that you drew starts in the center, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm drawing a circle in the center of the eye, and then I hide the back selection like this. And after that, I'm going to use those circles to make polygroups, and with the polygroups I'm going to do a crease edge, crease polygroup edge, and that'll make sure that there's a sharp edge. And after that, I can use the polygroups to actually apply a color on the model. I'm pretty sure that in this model that I've got here, that I'll add I'm going to do this once more if I'm not mistaken, and that's just because there wasn't a UV map present, so I made all the textures and then I realized that I can't unwrap the entire model, so that's something that we're going to do right now. You can see me, I unwrap the model again, and after that I actually need to undo the previous steps, so well, I could have chosen to like remove this part of the video, like to hide the mistakes, to be honest, but I like to show the workflow and also the things that go wrong. And you can see here that using a streaming software and the 3D software at the same time is quite heavy, at least on my machine. So the entire Zbrush just kind of crashed and I needed to restart it. But of course I saved my files before I started the eyes, because I know from other projects this would be a pretty heavy loaded subject to work on. Meaning that I'm first of all, I'm going to check the eyes again. I re-UV mapped them to make sure that there is at least a good UV map on the model, so I can unfold the eyes after I did the masking and the polygroups. So this won't happen again. Well, actually, just see me placing this, and what I do now is, after I draw the first circle, I didn't move the camera, so I am pretty sure that the second circle will be kind of in the center, and that's also why I did the entire circle you see now. That's just for me to know if I'm really in the center of the model, and I can use that spacebar to move around the entire mask selection. And now I'm just painting in the circles, and I'm looking around, and I'm looking at the side to see if it's even convincing looking eyeball. And you can see once again I just crease the edges and add the polygroups, and now I can easily select it, select a darker color for the iris, and fill the object, and so on. You can easily see how the eyes are shaped this way. And the orange color scheme will already fit with the rest of the model, that's why I put it in, because eventually my reference also shows more of those colors. And after that, it's more of a variation. That's something we're going to do in the next session. We're going to add a little bit more of a different detail in there, because just a little bit of less symmetry before I start painting. You can really see that those tiny spots and freckles and stuff on the body really makes this thing look well, different and more alive actually, and that's what we're going for, of course. And that's pretty much it for this session. And just to be sure, see what, yeah, we're just going to edit the rest of the details. And let's see, yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's like I said, it's really important to make sure that your model is different compared to the models that are already out there. And by adding these details and adding those spots, really specific spaces, and actually making sure that they're scattered around the model without like symmetry, that's what brings a model like this to life. And actually going through like the crevices here, that's where those things interact. For now, I would say thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.